Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Today we're going to be addressing the situation at the front line and specifically some of the painful topics to talk about because apparently for people it's not good enough for Ukraine to just absolutely demolish Russians on the Kupiansk direction, completely putting all of the efforts that they did over the year to zero. Apparently it's just worth maybe a week or so of praise, and then we're back into the Russian propaganda narratives. And everyone else is screaming that, oh my God, Ukraine is losing, everything is lost, we're about to collapse. We're not. So let's just go over the things that are happening at the front line, what people are reporting, and more importantly, what does it actually mean in a bigger picture. First things first, let's address the most painful thing that happened in the last couple of days that a lot of people screamed about is supposed Russian breakthrough at Hulyai, where Russians even showed a video of captured Ukrainian battalion command point with some laptop and some phones that were able to be unlocked, and people started claiming, oh my God, it's the super secret information, that now this means that Ukrainians are collapsing, and well, everything that I said so far. Thankfully, we found a Ukrainian journalist that actually reached out to her contacts in the area, and we now can look at what is actually happening there. So I'm going to read it to you as it is here. From the perspective of a journalist, I found an officer from the command and observation post of the 1st Battalion 106th Brigade who managed to break out of Hulyai. His accounts matches the version of events that another officer from the 102nd Brigade described to me yesterday. That officer was in radio contact with them and also escaped the city under similar circumstances. I'm publishing this account of the servicemen from the same COP. On December 17 at approximately 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., two guards who were posted upstairs were the first to notice two people in uniform on one side of the street. They could not identify who they were and came down to ask us. We told them it was the enemy. As soon as they went back upstairs, the enemy was already coming towards them. They did not open fire. Instead, they retreated down to the basement and told us that the bastards were already on the floor. Bogdan, the company commander, had another soldier took up positions on the stairwell. The other soldiers stepped out first. Bogdan second. Immediately automatic fire erupted. The company commander was killed at the moment of advancing. We began throwing grenades and the enemy pulled back. We established the defensive positions inside the COP and fully blocked all entrances. We started calling for medical evacuation to extract the wounded soldiers. They said they would look into it, but they delayed so long that by the event he had bled out. We organized drone pilots to observe from above and called artillery fire onto our own positions. Everything above was being destroyed while we stayed in the basement. Later, drones conducted clearing operations. Our internet connections went down. What was happening above was unknown. We established a 360-degree defense and stayed like that all night, listening for someone to clear the first floor so that we could get out. During that time, we decided to destroy classified documents. One room was constantly burning because of an FPV drone had struck it, causing a very intense fire. This is where we burned documents and laptops. Everything we had was burned. I do not know who overlooked the laptops that were left lying on the desk. There was also an order during withdrawal to spill gasoline. 20 liters had been deliberately left there so that it would ignite. We waited the entire night for the first floor to be cleared or an evacuation to arrive. Nothing happened. At 5:30 a.m., we realized that we had to make decisions to leave the COP on our own. My group went out first and cleared an immediate area. Then the order was given to retrieve the body and the rest began withdrawing along the pre-planned routes. I do not know why the COP was not set on fire by the last group to leave. The phone left behind maybe have belonged to the deceased. We were moving for 3 days. On the second day, we reached the positions of adjacent friendly units and made contact with the outside world, letting them know we are alive. We moved into a tree line with the enemy drones detecting us. While relocating to cover, the chief of staff was killed by 2 drone-dropped munitions. We spent a full day in that hole. In the morning, we had a final dash, and thanks to fog, reached the locations where we were extracted. Question: was there classified information on the storage devices left at the headquarters? Answer: I am not ready to say what exactly was on them. I took all my devices that had Krapiva installed with them, and Krapiva is a Ukrainian military digital battle management and targeting system used for mapping friendly and enemy positions, coordinating units, and calling in artillery fire. I burned 2 tablets that contain my messages and meeting notes used to communicate with adjacent units because I understood I would not be able to carry out. The route was long and extremely difficult. Most likely it was just panic. The basement was supposed to be completely burned. Gasoline has been prepared and someone simply did not ignite it. Any valuable information that might have been there regarding positions was already outdated anyway. Question: has brigade or corps commander contacted you after the incident? No, they have not. Since yesterday, we already know they, by the way, contacted. Counterintelligence has been checking us. The battalion commander was removed yesterday. The soldiers who managed to withdraw from positions are being offered immediate transfer to 225th Assault Regiment. Question: at the moment that this happened, how far your headquarters was from the line of contact? It was 700 meters. We were told the movement was not allowed. I personally witnessed a call from brigade headquarters where they were shouting, accusing us of lying about being in Huliapole. They demanded that a drone film us and that we wave our hands to prove we were actually there. And it was precisely the day after we waved that the drone that this incident occurred. Good. So what we hear here is pretty, in details description of what happened there. I have little doubt to believe that this is what happened, for one reason specific only. Because what we read there, to be honest, is pretty mundane. If this, what I just read to you, is a shock to you, then you have not been paying attention close enough to how this war is going. Some people assume that war is some kind of this clean advances of one side where there is like perfectly controlled and secured positions of one side, and then suddenly there is like a wave of enemies, like this red wave is just approaching to you and is taking over your positions, and then you're able to withdraw. Yet for months and months and months and months and months and months and months now, we have been underscoring that Russians are using different tactics, that Russians are infiltrating deep inside Ukrainian controlled territory, bypassing some of the observation points. So what happened in Huliapole is definitely not anything that is groundbreaking or it's completely shattering the narratives. But what it does outline is that there are still serious issues in the command within this area. Now, if you have been following my channel, you know all too well that this has been the problematic area for Ukrainians. A lot of people are concentrating on Pokrovsk and Mirnograd and how they're being defended. But to be honest, from everything that I've seen, the defense around those 2 cities is relatively competent. Biggest Russian gains, if we're talking territory-wise, during the 2025 were actually in this southern area. And this southern area is where Russia were able to advance quite rapidly. And I underscored it time and time and time again that Ukrainians are having issues with command and control in this area. Now, I don't want to point fingers because I don't know all of the details. This is for Ukrainian military to understand what is the issue. But it definitely has something to do that a lot of the parts of control of this area is due to the territorial defense forces. So territorial defense forces, by this point, I don't want to say, I don't want to accuse that they don't want to fight. That would be inaccurate. But definitely they are questioning what part of the force they are belonging to. So there are reports from the territorial defense forces that they don't want to shoot at Russians because Russians are not shooting at them. So, they're trying to essentially not endanger themselves too much. Yeah, again, I don't want to say that all of the territorial defense forces are like that, but I did see reports of something like this happening in this area specifically. So the point of the matter is, what this report highlights for me is that there are still major issues for Ukrainian system and command and control and communication system specifically in this area. One part is obviously the command and who is reporting and what is being reported, and we're going to touch upon this as well. But second part is, for example, Yuri Butusov an ex-big journalist in Ukraine, big critic of Zelensky, by the way. He went out to be a drone, I believe, platoon, maybe a squad, I don't know, but like a drone operator and drone organizational guy on the front lines right now. And he actually did a review of some of the units also in these areas. And one of the things that he noted is just how underutilized drone observations are. That a lot of times the norms that they outline for their units to control their positions are 10 times less prevalent than on these directions. So essentially, they are letting big holes in between, for example, drone flights where an enemy can just sneak through. What I do want to push against is people yelling and claiming, oh my God, secret data has made it to the Russian hands. Firstly, that is such a stupid thing to say because, okay, it was in a battalion command point, but as you heard the story, it's potentially not that important data. That is the first. And secondly, listen, Russians are capturing and killing Ukrainians every day. Like, if you think that Ukrainians are not sustaining damage, I'm not sure which fantasy world you're living in. But they're capturing and killing Ukrainians. These Ukrainians that they're capturing and killing all have both the tablets and also the phones on them and everything else. So Russians most likely already have access to majority of information. More importantly, it is only from a battalion level command. So it's relatively, in a large sense, low level control point. So even if there was information on that those tablets and phones, it would be just within the immediate area of that battalion, most likely. It would not have any major points here. More importantly than that, Russians are already attacking. So Ukrainians are de facto reactive in this region. So if you're reacting to what Russians are doing anyway, so then what kind of plans do you think you can get? So basically what I'm saying is that there is mostly, this is just a big red herring with all of the secret data that was on these devices and that there was a battalion point. Major issue is still the systemic problems within the Ukrainian military, and I hope this story outlined what exactly do I mean. Is it good? No. But is it something that we should be tearing our hair out and saying that everything is falling apart? No, because this is exactly how war looks like. If you think war looks like something like clean or out of the movies where generals in high chairs and no one is making any errors, then you're living in a fantasy world. But more important news, we now got reports that one of the best counter assault brigades, I don't want to say they're assault brigades because those can be mixed up, the 225th Assault Brigade Skela, they have been actually redeployed to Huliaipole, and right now they are counterattacking inside of the city, and there are intense fighting happening inside of city of Huliaipole. So we should expect potentially some more positive news, and maybe we will see some slowdown of the Russian advances. Then let's talk about Pokrovsk, Mirnograd. Now, if you believe Russian propagandists, obviously everything was already captured. The reality is not the same. We have reports from the Ukrainian General Staff with some videos as well that actually Ukrainians are still fighting in Mirnograd, north of Mirnograd. They have also counterattacked in Rodinske, Krasny Liman at the north. And more importantly, just recently, there have been also reports that Ukrainians are also attacking at the north of Pokrovsk. As you can see, suddenly we don't see any major encirclements on the front line. Suddenly we see that potentially if there were any forces, they have been withdrawn, and now the line has been more or less equalized, and now this is just a regular fighting. So once again, despite all of the people claiming that Ukrainians are just abandoning their positions and everything is falling apart, the reality of the matter is that no, Ukrainians are doing what they can with the resources that they have, and they are pretty competently fighting in this area. Then around Siversk area, here I explained a lot that Russians were able to capture Siversk, and therefore this whole pocket is pretty much going to be right now closing. There are a couple of high ground positions that we are looking for. So far, Russians have not reached them. But importantly, there have been reports on what can actually be the cause of of issues around Sieversk, and surprising absolutely no one that this is mostly because of, again, lies and systematic issues within the Ukrainian military. This is about false reporting that the positions that they're still holding are theirs while they're already being overrun by Russians, and in this case, Sieversk direction unfortunately paid the price. And this actually finally outlines for us big picture understanding, because let's zoom out a little bit. So we know that in 2025, Russia were not able to achieve any of their stated goals, not even by a 10% margin, not even by 1% margin. They were barely able to achieve anything. So that was 2025. It was an absolute disaster for Russians, yet they still advanced. However, when we actually look at these advances, we start seeing a pattern. We start seeing that, oh, there was issues at Avdiivka where Russians were able to advance. Well, it was because of Ukrainian fuck-up first at Avdiivka and then fuck-up at Ocheretino because of poor command and control and poor coordination. Oh, we have issues around the south. And here again, Russians are able to advance because of a lot of Ukrainian fuck-ups. Then we talk about Sieversk direction. Oh, they were able to collapse Sieversk direction, and we again hear the same pattern. Ukrainians just have issues. So what I want you to understand is the big picture. Russians are atrocious. The results that Russians are achieving compared to how much resources they have versus how much resources Ukraine has is pitiful. It's barely even registering on radar. But any of these major advances that they're making, majority of them is mostly due to the errors on Ukrainian side. And this is why it's important. No army is without flaws. But the problem is that when Russia is using flaws, they can plug in these flaws essentially by throwing bodies at them. Ukraine cannot really do this because we know that Ukraine is less manpower stuffed force in this war. And they are really struggling with this and they're trying to solve this. But it's important to understand here that if they actually tackle these issues, then Russian advances would be even much less than what they are right now. Absolute majority of big Russian movements were just because Ukrainian lack of, I don't want to say professionalism, but I think it's the right word, because Ukrainian military is not the professional military. It is a mobilized military. We all know that. If you don't understand it, again, where fantasy world are you living in? Ukrainians are running a mobilized military that has a lot of people that were not supposed to be there and don't want to be there. But now they are trying to do their best with the reforms that are being announced, with the redistribution of forces. And more importantly, one of the major parts that I was hoping for to hear, we're actually hearing, is that they're increasing the amount people will be getting paid for participating on the contract fighting. So what this says to me is that people that will be in Ukrainian military moving on will be people that want to be in the Ukrainian military. So hopefully we can move away from a mobilized military, and that will allow us to see improvements also in command and control. But the big picture is that all of the advances that Russia is portraying, that they're doing great and so on, was mostly because of Ukrainian-owned fuck-ups. Iron out the fuck-ups, clear out their internal problems, and then things like this will not happen. And then Russia will achieve nothing. But even without that, Ukrainians are doing really, really well on all parts of the front line. And there has been also another development that I want to just share with you. It's from Serhiy Flesh-Beskresnov, one of the best analysts and reporters on the drone and electronic warfare. And he basically dismisses the some fantasy that Russia is accumulating the Shahed drones. Because the reports have been that Russia has major stockpiles of Shahed drones to strike Ukraine or the European countries, yet Serhiy Flesh is stating that's no, that's not true. Because the drones, the Shahed drones that Russia is sending to us are literally made on the 25th, are made on the 9th of December of the 2025. I know for Americans, the first is the date, not the month. So it's 9th of December 2025. So they have been made just recently. As soon as Russia makes them, they are preparing them and launching them towards Ukraine. So overall, stay true to the big picture. As I explained, Ukraine is counterattacking in certain directions, both in Huliapole and around Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, so it's not as bad. There is no encirclement of Ukrainian forces. The panic spreaders about the secret data is again overstated. But there are certain issues, real issues, that both we and Ukrainians need to talk about, mostly Ukrainians. Our job is to support Ukraine, and you guys have been doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for supporting this drone fundraiser for Ukrainian armed forces. Trust in Ukraine, support Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and Happy New Year.